Hey guys, so I'm going to be doing the driving review for the Q60. Had this car for a few months now, so I think I'll be able to speak to it a little bit better than I did when I first got it. So I'm going to be going over what it feels to drive. First thing we're going to do actually is go and launch the car. I'm going to put it here, and we're just going to... Just put on the brake, revs up a little bit, and then... There you go. That was 0 to 60. So first thing we're going to talk about is actually the power. Now, this car really surprises me because I didn't know Infiniti made a Q60, you know, the car that's superseded the G37. I thought they were around 300, maybe 330, but this one's 400. So it's a V6, twin turbo, 400 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque. And the way it delivers that is actually pretty interesting. So I was pretty surprised, I would have to say. So if I go... So like I was saying, I was actually pretty surprised with the power and actually how consistent it is. So the car actually has water-cooled or fluid-cooled intercoolers. So in a way, no matter what the temperature fluctuations are going to be, if it's really hot, it's still going to be the same consistent type of power. The best part is if once you get into boost weather like fall weather or winter weather, it's just that much better. So this car hits just as hard as it does any other day out of the year, which is pretty awesome. I haven't had a car yet that kind of delivers the power as consistently as this car does. So we do have a couple modes here. So what we have is we have snow. Haven't really tried that one out, but usually what snow mode does is it just limits the power. You have eco mode, which I'll get back to that a little bit more, but there's standard mode. I don't spend any time in standard mode actually at all, but this is what the car starts off in. It starts off in standard. You have sport. Shifts might be a little bit quicker. The throttle just a touch bit more sensitive, and sport plus, the throttle is definitely very, very sensitive as compared to standard and definitely eco. And then you have personal, which you could set anything any way you want to. Now the reason I want to get back to eco is because I thought eco was just honestly a BS mode, as it is in most cars. I thought it was a BS mode like it is in most cars, but for whatever reason here, it actually works the way it's supposed to. You feel the throttle be not as sensitive. It doesn't deliver the power as aggressively, so you're not, you know, giving it the full fuel, not giving the full boost all the time. Something that just retards the throttle, and you don't have that much of a spike in fuel and in boost as you would in Sport Plus, where you really need that immediacy. So driving around eco, you still get immediacy. So whenever you're at a stoplight or intersection or you really need to go, you just put your foot a little bit more, maybe have 50% throttle, and the car starts moving. You do get into boost. So it's just like that little initial 25% is really that holds it in that eco mode, and afterwards you really need to accelerate. You put your foot down, it will accelerate. It doesn't rob any power as it would, as you think it would. So let's try first gear. So one interesting thing with this car is in first gear, usually it's a wash. No matter what car I drive, the turbo has to spool up too fast, use too much power in here. But here, if you're in first, it actually does feel pretty good. And the interesting thing is, I guess it's the torque, but it's so funny because I compare this to the S4. The S4 also had 350 pound-feet of torque. It chirps the tires a little bit in the wet, whereas the S4 never did that. I think just the way this thing delivers power is really immediate. It's really explosive. It's not a lazy power plant. It's something that's immediate. So let's try a second gear and roll into it. And this one really sucks you back a little bit more. Same thing with third gear. I mean, even when you get onto the highway, you still start pulling a lot more than you expect it to be. You really start pulling a lot more than you expect it to be. Do second gear again and roll into it. It's a lot of fun. Honestly, that 400 horsepower really makes this car, and I think it's awesome that they offer something like this. I think a lot of people have been maybe sleeping on this car. I actually haven't seen that many. I'm kind of surprised, but so I think power is awesome. Power is great. I don't really think it needs any more. I think with the water and fluid intercoolers, along with the 400 horsepower, 300 pound-feet of torque, the all-wheel drive, it is pretty beastly. I know there's tuning potential with this car also. The one downside, I think, is definitely the 7-speed automatic. It is, so for downshifts, it's somewhat immediate. It's actually not as bad as other torque converters. So if I'm in fourth here, let's go down to second, third, second. But the upshifts are late. So if I'm in third, and let's say I want to go into next gear, I don't have any throttle, it'll show me that it's going to fourth, and then it takes about a little bit more than half a second or up to a second to switch to the next gear. If I'm going full throttle, it's much faster. So the ECU reads you going as fast as possible and wants to complete the shift faster. It'll complete the shift much faster than you would if you're just driving around. I don't really like that personally. I feel like if I'm driving around, I want it to be quick. Also, I don't want it to be really lazy, which it is. And the Sport Plus is actually much faster. If I go in eco and standard mode, it's much slower. So there's that. Besides that, if you're going full throttle, the upshifts are good. Downshifts are slightly slower, but then if you're driving around town, it is just really lazy. The one good thing with the 7-speed automatic torque converter is when you're stuck in a stop or an intersection you really need to go and you need immediate power, you're ready to go. There's no dual clutch. You don't need to rev a little bit just to get it going. It's going right away. So that's one good thing. You do have kind of the immediacy there. One cool thing, so I have the paddles here, but if I'm turning somewhere, especially if I'm on a stop sign and I need to make a turn and I'm kind of revving it out too high, I can just use this down here. And it's funny because I rest my hand here. I believe the Q60 also came in manual, so this really feels very comfortable. So for those manual guys, this makes a lot of sense. So if you have the automatic, you kind of rest your hand here and just feels really natural. So the roll holding in this car is actually really good. It's actually surprising how good it is. When I go around turns, I don't really approach the limit that much, and when I do, I kind of feel it out. The one thing I don't like is the way the power plant is designed. You have those two turbos. If you're let's say at 15%, you want to give it to 20%, the turbo kicks in, you get this rush of torque. So if you're trying to balance on the limit or on a turn, it's that much harder to figure out where the power is going to come in, because sometimes I find myself in situations I'm there and I give it a little bit more power and all of a sudden I get a torque spike because of the boost coming in out of nowhere. So I just wish it was a little bit more linear than it is the way it is now. But if you're just driving this car every day, maybe some track stuff, but if you're really taking some tight corners or if you're messing around in the snow or the rain or whatever it is, you do have to watch out for that power spike, I don't know, once the boost really hits. Because there'd be other situations too when I'm driving and then you feel the first turbo, and then once the second turbo hits, you're really pushed back into the seat and you really start getting going. The suspension is compliant. I don't really feel a change between any of the modes, to be completely honest with you, but it's really nice. I haven't had any issues. If I hit potholes, if I hit imperfections, it really doesn't bother me. I don't have to clench my teeth and worry about that. If you have a smooth road, you don't really have to worry about that, but here in tri-state area it really does suck. But no problems there. I haven't had to change any of the tires. Those people who've been on the channel before know that I've changed out 10 tires at least for the S4. It's some number like that, some crazy number, and some bent rims. Nothing so far with this, whereas the S4 probably would have had 2 by now, so at least there's that. The other thing is, because the Q60 and Q50 kind of share the same platform, it does feel more like a sedan on the inside. Unless you turn around to the back, you see the coupe. On the outside, obviously it's a coupe design, but it does make it feel like it's a sedan when you're driving this thing, which is pretty nice. The brakes are also really good. They're not some touchy grabby brakes up top and you can't modulate the brakes at all. It's really nice. If you apply the brake pressure, it starts braking. If you apply a little bit more, it brakes harder. I know that sounds pretty redundant, but actually some cars don't do that. Some cars grab really hard, and then when you go a little bit more, they don't really do much until you really dig into the brakes, and it starts braking really hard. And it makes for a really interesting experience where if you drive different types of cars and you start driving the touchy grabby brake car, it's hard to adjust to that. So just to go back to the eco mode, it's that big of a difference that normally if I'm driving in standard, especially Sport Plus, I get 300-ish maybe, whereas with eco, or 330, 350 around there, but with eco I get up to 400. And it's that big of a difference where, you know, it doesn't affect the driving performance, and I'm able to still have fun with the car without switching the modes. Or I can switch the modes, but I get my regular driving, get my passing, everything done, but I benefit from the MPG also, which is pretty nice. So the other thing is exhaust sound. You don't really get a lot of exhaust sound, should I say. I think the G37 from the outside sounds really good. I've had people tell me before the Q60 sounds really good from the outside. I don't hear as much from in the cabin. So when you're in standard and in eco mode, you don't hear much. You have a little bit of that V6 going on. But when you put in Sport Plus, it gets a little bit more, and you kind of do hear that V6 rumble, that trumpet sort of sound. If you guys heard the G37, you know what I'm talking about. Or Nissan GTR, it's sort of the same thing. Maybe not as deep, but it does resonate. You get a lot more induction sound, so you kind of you do hear a whistle. I doubt that's come out on camera here when I've been recording it, but it's a weird type of whistle, and that's just the turbo coming in, so you do get that sound. When you downshift from third to second, for some reason, that's the only gear this happens, you do get a rush of the intake, whereas all the other gears doesn't have that. I don't know why that is, but it does give you a little bit more audio there. So as far as the soundtrack of the car goes, it's decent. I wouldn't say it's terrible. I wouldn't say there's nothing there, but it's decent. You do get a little bit of enjoyment from that. So this car is a few years old. It's 2018. There's no squeaks or rattles or anything, even if I go over bumps, which is pretty nice. Kind of surprising. I know some of the Mercedes, Audis, and BMWs you drive it for a few months, and all of a sudden that thing starts squeaking and rattling, but this car doesn't, which is pretty awesome. The infotainment system, I don't really use the navigation here. I use my phone, but that really goes for any car, to be completely honest with you. There's really not much else to do here. They give you a driver profile that you could set up, but I don't really understand the benefit. You can tie it to your key, but it doesn't really change any of the settings. The other issue I've had is the memory seating here for some reason doesn't work all the time. You could set it, and then some days it will work, some days it won't. I have no idea what that's about, but the other thing in the beginning was the seatbelt here. For whatever reason, there's like a little extender here for the seatbelt, and when I first got into it, trying to find a comfortable position to put that so it doesn't cut your throat here with the seatbelt was really hard to do, but now I kind of found a good spot. So that's something, if you're looking at this car, you have to be wary of. Visibility is really great. I mean, you have the garage link here, the auto dimming mirrors, you have the cruise control, comfortable car, you have the power. So as far as everyday usability is really great. So something you guys might have seen in an exterior interior video is you could fold down the rear seats. So you actually have the trunk and the rear seat space if you want to put anything back there. So not even the Porsches have something like that. So this one really does maximize your space in the back. Really cool idea. As far as that goes, completely overall impression, I'm pretty impressed with this car. I didn't think the 400 horsepower would really make that much of a difference. I've been in faster cars. For some reason, this car delivers the power much more aggressively than all the other cars do. Something you'll notice when you get to higher horsepower cars is some of them deliver the power really smoothly. And it doesn't feel as fast, but maybe you are going much faster per the speedometer or per GPS, whatever it is that you're looking at, but it doesn't feel that fast. This one actually does feel pretty quick, I have to say. It feels faster than the S4 does. That 400 horsepower with the 350 torque and with the torque converter does make it feel that much better. So compared to the previous S4, it's really good. I think from a highway, it does much better. If you look up the quarter mile differences between the two, I think they're off by a couple of tenths, and I think the S4 is a little bit faster. But this car should trap a little higher than the S4 does. The S4 has a launch control system. This is more of the torque converter braking, torque braking, where you just kind of put your foot on the brake and then on the gas, and you just go up to like 2,000 RPM or whatever it is, and then just take off. So that's not an effective launch control program, but besides that, I really haven't any issues. It's easy to pass in this car. Again, if they made this a dual clutch transmission, I think it would tie in the sportiness a little bit more. But having the torque converter is nice. I know if they put one of those new ZF autos in here, I think this car would be a beast. If they ever wanted to make that Infiniti El Rouge edition, or that Infiniti Project S or Project Black or something it was called, that thing was really awesome. I think it was close to 500 horsepower. It's awesome. I think that'd be an amazing platform as a coupe. I don't know what else you would need. I think it's really great the way it is now, but obviously you could use a little bit more power. So guys, that's really my review for the Q60. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.